Hey traders, checking in on the stock market today. So a bounce underway. Some names breaking support with no follow through. Other names holding double bottoms. That gave a nice setup for bottom fishing plays first thing this morning. And I'll go over how the video from yesterday for me acted as homework to establish a game plan for trades today. So this is the S&P 500 4-hour falling wedge that we were watching, and it broke bear yesterday. And as soon as that resistance line, support line, doesn't act as resistance, I get rid of it because I don't care about that line anymore. It's no longer in play. That being said, this resistance line is still in play, and it's something I'm keeping an eye on because I am finding the most clarity on the futures chart on the 12-hour time frame right now. And we can say anything under the high of yesterday is a 12-hour lower high, and this downtrending resistance line is potentially coming back into play. So the 12-hour is just nice and clear with this downtrend, and as long as we keep setting lower highs, the bulls still have proving to do for me personally. So what the bulls are hoping for is follow through tomorrow, which would potentially set up an inverse head and shoulders if we get up close to that high of yesterday resistance, plenty of space for a 12-hour high or low, and then the bulls look for that trend change. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on into tomorrow. Great bounce for the bulls today. They're creating some nice space to work with, but a little bit more proving is needed. So I personally, I'm not swing trading in this current market environment. And into the end of the year for December, I'm going to be 99% day trades and just close the year out. We got 20 trading days left. Start next year with a fresh, clean slate. And that is how I am approaching this market. Because as I mentioned yesterday, giving those examples, swing trading is a little bit tricky in this current volatility. So looking at SPY, we have this bounce, daily and sidebar. Nice bottom fishing setup for today. And again, as I mentioned in the intro here, these videos that I do, they're mutually beneficial. So they help out people that are watching and help give them clarity and show different things about technical analysis, but they help me too. This is my homework for tomorrow. And I went through yesterday, I started the video saying, well, nothing's at extreme RSI levels. Nothing is at historical RSI bounce levels. So I'm real patient. And then I got to IWM and I said, oh, well, wait a minute. We are at historical bounce levels. We're right above them. So then heading into today, I said, I'm looking to play an IWM bounce because it's meeting my criteria of extreme RSI. We'll look at it in just a second. And it gave a nice bottom fishing play. So both IWM and SPY had that at the open. And we held support by 2 pennies. So what does an aggressive bull do? They buy right at the open, or they patiently wait and see that support test. This is the 2-minute time frame. And they see the low of the day. And then they see the low of the day break by a couple pennies, but we hold the low of yesterday. And then as soon as we hit a new high of the day from there, a bull can enter, put their stop under the low of yesterday. And obviously the risk to reward, the reward is multiple times more what that risk is. And that was only for the first, 30 minutes. By the end of the day, it was way more reward as far as the possible risk. So nice bottom fishing play for the bulls, but a bit more proving is needed for me personally. If we have a green day tomorrow, these weekly time frames are going to be just fine. And again, that was the perspective yesterday. Hourly is all bears, but the weekly, the bulls have tons of space to work with. And here's SPY trying to hold. Again, it depends on what tomorrow does, but trying to hold the weekly EMA 12 and QQQ, we know is stronger right off of it. So it's a bull flag on QQQ at this point, unless we see a bit more downside. The NASDAQ here, this morning headed into the open and was watching this downtrending support line. And I said to myself, if we bounce this morning, this downtrending support line is going to be very important for me. And we have tons of touches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this morning was 6 touches. So definitely something I'm keeping an eye on. As far as the 12-hour time frame here, we know we have a wall of resistance with a bunch of tops, not in play at this point. But again, look at QQQ. What is the probability that we just V-shaped from here versus setting a lower high compared to the high of yesterday? For me, I feel a lower high is the more likely scenario. So if I look at QQQ, I'm watching QQQ for a daily lower high, anything under 40119, which is still 3% or so from where we stand. So again, bulls have more proving to do, but it's a good start. Surprising amount of volume for the size of that candle. I would have expected a lot more range with that volume. Anyways, semiconductors. So semiconductors are not confirming the head and shoulders yet. They're keeping the daily uptrend. and key support 297.89, and we held that level. And obviously the best case for the bulls is just keep holding these daily higher lows. And if the high of today breaks tomorrow, 307.17, a new daily higher low will be set, and we'll be looking right back at 315.57 key resistance. So still not, I wouldn't be surprised for some further consolidation from here. Again, it's a stair-step pattern on the weekly, higher low every week for 2 months at this point, 8 candles. So keeping an eye on that pattern. And today was a scenario where we headed into the morning saying, keep an eye out on these EV names to potentially be laggard bears because they've been holding on so strong. And that's potentially the same thing to be keeping an eye out for in the semiconductors as well. The lead bouncers today were the financial sector and IWM. So the question is, are we seeing some money rotate out of the names that have been stronger into the names that just got the most beat up and the names that were at some historical or RSI bounce levels? And I would say that some EV money left today and found some names that were more beat up to go to, whether it was in XLF or growth IWM or whatever it was. But it was notable to me that the broader market, SPY 1.5%, QQQ 0.7%, XLF 0.3%, a lot of green out there, but the names that have been stronger in the EV space, breaking support. Tesla lost the daily higher low, not a lot of follow through. This is, again, where a lot of new traders get crossed up because as soon as you break the support, they go bear, but don't forget to zoom out because it's entirely possible that we now just set a weekly equilibrium. Our lower high is now set, and we're just looking for a weekly higher low, anything above 978.60. So it's possible to go from a tightening range on a shorter term time frame, and then you break it, but then it just goes right into a tightening range on a longer term time frame, and the direction that the short term time frame broke doesn't get a whole lot of follow through. So it's always important for the next step, just always zoom out and say, well, it was a bear break, but we're looking for a weekly higher low to potentially remain within a tightening range. But other EV names as well. LCID was a lead bull. Bear break. That bear break happened at 49.41. Bears did get some solid follow through. 49.41 down to the low of today is what we call follow through. 6% to the downside on that support break. So as soon as the daily higher low breaks and the downtrend is confirmed, a lot of weakness. Congrats to the bears there. We knew the weekly was a bit extended, and here we are seeing weekly consolidation. Could this be a cup and handle? I know hopeful bulls have that question. It's possible, but we would essentially need to see the daily downtrend confirmed with zero follow through, which means we would need a green day tomorrow for that to remain the case. And other names, RIVN doesn't have much price history, but it was red today in the EV space. NIO had a huge red day. Not only was EV red, but then the headline that there might be delisting of Chinese names. Baba took a big hit, but NIO was definitely a part of that. And NIO at this point is definitely getting a setback here. 33.17 is a must-hold support because if that breaks, we confirm a monthly downtrend. This monthly equilibrium, we have been watching and anticipating that this would form for 8 months at this point, and we are now close to seeing a break. So watch very closely for NIO. But again, tying it back, EV weakness after being a lead bull. Now the question is, do we see our other lead bull sector, the semiconductors? Do we see some weakness there if we get continued bounces in XLF and IWM and growth? So watching closely, it's the kind of thing where you would think, well, we held up well during market fear. We're going to hold up fine during a market bounce. But not the case. Money is always shifting around. Healthcare bouncing today, not much going on. Anything under 133.72 is a daily lower high. We know bigger picture. We are scouting a weekly higher low and an equilibrium here, but there's no sign that a weekly higher low is shaping up. We would need a decent bounce and a daily higher low and trend change to try and shape up. We know we're watching for a bigger picture over the next couple of weeks, but one little green day, certainly not enough. XLF, big green day, but a double top at the high of yesterday by 1 penny. So it's an inside bar, and I would call anything under 39.36 just a daily lower high. Bigger picture, we are still in a weekly uptrend, trying to set a weekly higher low, but we need a big enough bounce to create the space for a daily trend change to take place. So just a daily inside bar, and we'll have to see the direction that it breaks. Looks like we're up here after hours in a lot of places. Little hourly bull flag into the end of the day. So all about 39.36 daily resistance for me. IWM, big bounce. So again, the daily RSI yesterday stood out 23. And we went back and we looked at the historical drops and we said, yeah, it can get down to the teens. We know it can see a little bit more downside, but we bottomed out at 19 and 21. Now they're bottomed out at 18 there. Back here it was 22, 20. So pretty much 18 to 22 is the bounce range on the daily chart for IWM over the last bunch of years. So we got right towards that level. And again, the only reason that I had confidence playing this bounce today was just the fact that we had a support level to be going off of. And I waited for the break of 214 because at that point we have less than $1 risk, and that was my entry point. So again, heading into the morning, game plan well before the open. QQQ potential gap down, IWM XLF higher opens. Bears are watching to see if EV names act as bear laggards on continued QQQ weakness. We didn't get the QQQ weakness, but we got the bear laggards on the EV. Aggressive bulls scouting IWM bounce as daily RSI gets close to historical bounce levels. I'm away for the morning, so I knew that as well. I was only there for the first half hour of the morning. So I want a bull position, I want to set a stop loss, and I want to leave the computer. Blah, blah, blah. And I was continuing to hold, and I still do, still have my SPXS hedge swing position. So knowing that if the broader market bounces, my hedge is going to drop significantly. Some of my long positions are going to go up, but I would like to be green on the day if we bounce all day. So that's why I was looking long and not touching that SPXS. And then 2 minutes after the bell, again, right when we broke 214 on IWM, grab TNA, which is the 3 times leveraged bull, and just put my stop under the low with some wiggle room. And all decisions that I make when I'm trading leveraged ETFs, I don't look at the leveraged ETF chart. Every decision is based on the underlying ETF. So I would have stopped out of TNA if IWM broke the low of yesterday with a bit of follow through. So that was my game plan. But as soon as we saw this bounce, you remember the lesson that I said yesterday, we must change trends. A bounce is great, but if you do not change trends, you risk just fading and giving the whole move back. So rather than sticking to my game plan, which again in hindsight should have done because it would have been easier. You know, I did a lot of trading in both directions today once I got back, but you know, had I just stuck to the game plan, set my stop, and then came back, I would have been pleased. But you go up that fast, you know, almost a 2% move, 1.8% in 25 minutes, 30 minutes, I got to scale out into that strength. So I did, scaled out, and attempted to enter a short, had one short that stopped out break even. And again, my style is just looking for a short-term indication of a temporary top, making an entry, exiting half. And I made an attempt here. I was watching the 1 minute time frame. I was watching the pattern of a higher low every 1 minute candle. It happened for about 8-9 candles and made a bear entry when things got real extended. Sold half, put my stop right above the high. I did get stopped out here, but then there was another attempt. Look at this double top. Big drop. Size of the drop means a lot of space to scout the potential lower high for a top fish. So I did get that short. So sold my long a little bit too early, but got the short, exited the short, knowing that we were just looking for a 5 minute higher low. And I know I'm going really in depth here, but it was a scalp day for me in both directions. And then from there, I said, all right, well, now I got to leave the computer for real. So I saw this 5 minute candle. I said, all right, well, I'm going to re-enter half of my bullish position and just put a low risk stop right under that candle. If it's a 5 minute higher low and we confirm the trend change, I'll have half a position back, enjoying the strength. And if I stop out, then I'll have my morning win. It was a solid morning win with that kind of strength, and that would have been just fine. So I did stop out. We came all the way back down to the low. And then by the time I came back to the computer, we were up near the high of the day. So if I were at the computer, would have been able to maneuver a little bit better as far as recognizing now a triple bottom and jumping right back in with an aggressive bull position, stop under the low, very low risk, but sometimes life happens. So did trade it a couple other times, did have this short looking for hourly consolidation, and I did something I don't usually do. So I shorted here, I exited enough where I put my stop above the high of break even. I recognized an hourly bull flag forming and recognize an inverse head and shoulders. So I had my short on with a break-even stop, and I entered a long on this 5 minute higher low. And on this bull break, I exited a third of my position and then had a break-even stop. So at one point in time here, I had leveraged bear and leveraged bull, both trades open, and both trades with a break-even stop. I stopped out of my short trade, break even, and my long trade benefited. And so then I just scaled out my long trade into the end of the day. I did try one more time, and again, just a little break even attempt at a pullback because it was looking like a rising wedge to me on the 5-minute time frame. Bears were unable to get any follow through. This is what I was looking for a bear break of. And again, just a lot of little stop outs, break even, trying for more significant consolidation. So overall, it was a good day. And, my hedge, if I'm only looking at what my hedge did today, was SPY up 1.5%, big red position. But my SPY no touch went up. My MSOS core small position that I'm keeping an eye on, which we'll talk about in just a second, that went up. And then the day trades went up as well. So it ended up being a green day, even though my hedge dropped significantly. MSOS, so the cannabis sector, we know we're still watching the only short-term catalyst, only short-term possible known catalyst. Again, a buyout can happen at any time, but watching for whether or not SAFE is going to be added to the NDAA. And what has my attention now is a bear break with a lack of follow-through. Again, it's just a daily inside bar. This means nothing. But if we change daily trends from here, a lot of work for the bulls. We need a bounce. We need an inverse head and shoulders to set up. If we change the daily trend from here, it will be very notable to me that we broke to a lower low with zero follow through. That will show me bear exhaustion. But again, that needs another day or two of a bounce, a day or two of a pullback, and then another day or two of continuation. So I'm in no rush to do anything. It's not surprising that the sector is bouncing with IWM up 2.8%. And in all honesty, you could look at the cannabis space and say, I would have expected them to be up more after being all bears and having the broader market so strong today. Would have expected a little bit more. But you look at CGC, again, lower high each day pattern. Really nothing to write home about. A lot more follow through needed before we can even scout a trend change. So tiny bit of relief in a sea of red over the last couple of weeks. Again, just one eye open on the sector. Not putting a lot of attention because it's opportunity cost. Whether my funds are tied up or whether my attention is tied up, it's an opportunity cost. So I'm just barely keeping an eye on things. And if the bulls start to prove it, the bear break with the lack of follow through will definitely stand out to me. But a lot of proving is needed. The volume stands out. The ramp up in volume and how consistently it has been ramping up, we know that volume climaxes often mark highs and lows. And last week was a holiday week, but you look at the last 3 full weeks and the volume is very notable to me. It's just the price that is not proving it. Gold, so this is an example of a trade, and the hindsight lesson for me is sometimes the best decision you make in a trading day is the trade not to take. So I was looking bullish in the miners yesterday. I exited my gold and silver swing positions, but I said, there's a falling wedge forming, potentially on the S&P 500. We know that broke bear, so that didn't play out. But also on gold, a 4-hour falling wedge that I was watching. And yesterday morning, as I'm scouting a GDX entry, we were right here, and we had multiple 4-hour inside bars in a row, and they broke bull. And I was itching. Am I jumping in here? Is this the bull break that I'm looking for? And in the end, I decided to hold off. And it's because the broader market was showing a little bit of weakness, and we didn't break the high of this one candle here. And I thought we can still easily reject from this 4-hour resistance. If the trade's going to come to me, it'll be one more test of support that I'll be looking for an entry. And then by the time this morning rolled around, we were under support. And so that just keeps me really patient. So would have had a loss on that GDX trade, but decided against it. So keeping an eye on things here, but losing interest in the metals more and more with each day that goes by. We will bounce. GDX is daily oversold. We could draw that. Again, that's the thing with trend lines. Just a little adjustment. It's still getting hit plenty of times here. GDX daily RSI is right above oversold. You can see last time we dipped. Again, look historically, and we can say in the year of 2021, buying with RSI at or just under 30 has been the time to buy. So I'm going to keep paying attention for that reason. And we'll see if the bulls can shape up an hourly trend change in GDX. All right, that's all we got. I don't got any more end of video content, and I'm not going to film anything for a bit. So we're going back in time 2 years ago when I was going over a road trip that was maybe 7 years ago. So it's a long clip here, and YouTube's going to punish me for putting a long clip at the end, but I'm doing it anyway. And there's, I think, maybe 6 of them. So all throughout this week into next week, we'll be going back in time for story time road trips. Do good things. See you soon. We'll wrap it up here with story time. I'm going to kick it off with a road trip that I went on. And just to set the stage before we get into it, let's see. At this point in time, I started off with my road tripping career when I was in college, and I watched the movie, oh man, what's it called? Into the Wild. So I watched Into the Wild, and as soon as I saw it, I said, all right, we're going to Yellowstone. I'm trying to adventure. And so with my college buddies, we drove to Yellowstone 36 hours straight to the Badlands in South Dakota, and then to the Yellowstone. And we went out into the bush for 10 days backcountry camping. We had no idea what we were doing in terms of supplies to bring, and we were starved without food out in the backcountry. It was a huge learning experience, and we had such insufficient gear. It was comical looking back upon it, but we were pretty miserable and hungry, sustaining ourselves with ramen noodles after hiking 10 miles a day for 100 miles. So that was fun. After that, I went on a road trip with my buddies after graduating college. I took 2 of them, and we were going around the country to all the national parks. Found out about 2 weeks before the trip that neither of them had ever been camping. So I was pretty much the leader of that excursion and did all the planning and all the driving, and we took my Honda Civic out there. And after that, I had a great experience with them. It was a ton of fun, but there were a lot of times where I was sitting there saying, man, I wish I were by myself, because I would wake up early, I'd be up with the sun, and they'd sleep 2 or 3 hours after that. So I'd have to just be bumming around the campsite waiting for them, when in reality, I wanted to be up and going and on with my day. So definitely appreciated the camaraderie and company and fun that we had, but I wanted to do my own. So I set out on my own many-month road trip around the country in my Honda Civic, living out of my car. And I was also doing it on a budget. So I'm a minimalist at heart my whole life. I always have been conservative with money, conservative with resources. And so I had a game plan of, I'm just going to try and live out of my car and do this adventure with as much money as I'd be spending on rent. And I had saved up at that point in my trading career. I had success in the U.S. marijuana penny stock market, and I had saved up enough, maybe $20,000, that I was comfortable to know that I could, travel around for a year and figure some things out and have some fun before I looked at the job world and looked at, making money. And at that point, I didn't think I was going to be a full-time trader my whole life. I hadn't gotten to that point. I had some successful swing trading, and I traded a little bit while I was on my road trip by myself. Not a whole lot, but just some swing trades. There would be times where I wouldn't have internet for a whole week, so I would do some swing trading. And there were times where I would be, put in one place for a couple weeks visiting a friend or something, and that would allow me to do some trading as well. But overall, I was slowing way down on trading and just looking to do some adventuring. So started it off let's go with, that's what my life was. That was everything that I owned that I would put in my car, and had all the essentials. I had a big tent that I grew up with. This was like a 6-person party tent. I had a 4-person tent that I would bust out when I was camping out of my car. And then I had a 1-person tent that was really light for when I was backcountry camping. I had all my rain gear, and this was my sleeping mat, which, part of being a minimalist, I made tons of mistakes in terms of, skimping on my gear. This army pad is like $8. It's this thick. You might as well be sleeping on the ground. It did nothing. And I said, all right, now I need to buy a $100 sleeping mat after this experience, because I was just miserable and it wasn't worth it. There are some things that money is worth being spent on, and a sleeping mat is definitely one of them. So that was another lesson that I learned. So that was what I left with in my car. Didn't have much else room, and because the Honda Civic's very small, it was completely filled up. I started on the East Coast in North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains, pretty close to where I'm living right now. And that's why they call them the Smoky Mountains, because the elevation has the clouds rolling right through them. And it's an awesome national park.
And I got to learn a lot about these national parks in terms of their, rules and regulations. Some of them, like Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, is extremely friendly to campers. You get a permit and it pretty much says, don't camp within 100 feet of a road, 100 feet of a trail. And other than that, you can go wherever you want and sleep wherever you want. And I like that because there's so many times where I'm hiking, I'm just walking by a spot and I'm like, oh, that's the spot. I want to camp there. And oftentimes, it's not where your permit designates that you're supposed to go or things like that. So in Smoky Mountain, it's not the best camping. They have one designated campsite for developed camping, and it gets really crowded with a ton of people. And other than that, there's a lot of surrounding areas of national forests, and national forests are a lot more liberal with their rules, and you can pretty much pull off and backcountry camp wherever. There's very little regulation in that regard. So I generally would do that and then, go and hike inside the park, but not really camping in the park. But in this instance, I was. So night one of the road trip, setting off on this excursion, and I was heading out to my campsite a little bit late in the afternoon and close to the evening, actually. I was in a bit of a hurry. So got into the trail, started hiking. I think I had maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles to get to my campsite. Got about a third of the way there, and it just started downpouring. And, I had some rain gear, but this is the kind of downpour that no matter what, everything's going to be soaked, and you're going to have to set up your tent, and your tent's going to be soaked, and your sleeping bag's going to be soaked. And so I just turned around and walked back to my car, took off all my clothes, got naked in my car, and just sat there for a while and started to have the doubts, what am I doing? Is this, what I'm about to do this for a couple months. Can I even do this? Just, all those negative thoughts that just started building, and certainly on the back of having my night number one completely ruined in terms of what I was planning on, and it being pretty much, one of the worst case scenarios of comfortability for that night. So with all that doubt, honestly, I took a hit of ganja and I put on some music, and I've never experienced a more significant, impactful 180-degree turnaround of emotions. Generally, fortunately, I don't really have those negative feelings. I have a very happy life that I'm very grateful for, but in this instance, it was just like, whoa, I can't wait. This is so exciting. Everything is perfect. I couldn't be happier. And that I will always remember for how notable the complete turnaround in mental state was with just those two little combinations. And I think it was either listening to Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix when it happened as well. Very notable. I wrote that down somewhere. I also took notes and dream journal. That's another thing. With the part of this trip that I was doing, a big goal I had was learning lucid dreaming. And I was already lucid dreaming at that point, but I just mean getting really good at it and reading about it. So I brought multiple books with me, and I was keeping dream journals, and I was adjusting my sleep schedule to wake up really early in the morning and then go do something and break up my sleep cycle and then go back to sleep for an hour or two. And that's when you have the best lucid dreams. And I actually just had a lucid dream when I was napping an hour ago before making this video. But that was a good start. So I camped in the Smoky Mountain National Park for a couple nights after regaining my composure. And I've gone there in the summer, in the winter, maybe 3 or 4 times total. And I've never gone there without seeing elk. So there's elk all over, and they're just hanging out. They're used to people, very accustomed to it. And some nice fungi. What a lot of people don't know is that in Western North Carolina, it's a temperate rainforest. So it's extremely lush. They get a lot of water that, supplements all these plants. And there's tons of plant life. I want to say there's some kind of statistic like the most diverse plant life in the continental United States. I might be making that up, but it's something along those lines in terms of the variety of plant life. And if you've been to Western North Carolina in the summer, it blows you away with how lush everything is. And it does seem like a jungle. So here are some fungi getting all up on a tree. And one of my favorite parts about road tripping is water. Drinking, fresh sources. And this is a really easy filter that you just scoop up the water and hang it. And within 5 minutes, you have a gallon filled up of fresh mountain creek water. And obviously, the closer to the source, the closer into the top of the mountains you get it, the better it's going to be in terms of cleanliness. But that was something that I really started to appreciate, just fresh, clean water directly from the source. And that helped me feel really connected. So this entire road trip, we're going to go through all the states and all the national parks. And I took a bunch of pictures, not much video. But this entire road trip, in my opinion, shaped a lot of my psychology and personal everything about me that makes me a good trader. So I do think there are contributions to that. A lot of comfortability being alone, and it's almost to the point now where, you know, I need space to be alone because I enjoy it so much. But that was definitely due to this road trip and so many months on the road being alone. And there were times where I would go, you know, a couple weeks without having any interaction with people aside from, you know, just in passing hellos. So let's see what else. Syncing up with the sun. So my entire rhythm changed with the sun, where I was waking up with the sun and going to sleep. You know, if you're by yourself and it's nighttime and pitch black and you're out in the middle of the woods, there's not a whole lot to do. So I would generally go to sleep right as the sun was going down. So that would at times be, you know, 8 o'clock, I'm asleep, and I'm awake at a little after 5:30, just as the sky starts changing colors to get sunrise. And I loved that schedule. It felt really on point. Aside, and, you know, drinking water from the source and waking up with the sun, I felt very connected to the land. And with all the hikes that I ended up doing, it was a wonderful experience that I will continue to share with you all. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you in tomorrow's video, and we'll take it from there. Do good things. Have a great Friday night. Gonna go see some Empire Strikes Brass funk, New Orleans style.